to Transformation in Trials. Welcome to another episode of Transformation in Trials. I'm your host, Ivana Rosendal. In this podcast, we explore how clinical trials are currently transforming so we can identify trends that can be further accelerated. We want to ensure that no patient has to wait for treatment and we get drugs to them as quickly as possible. Welcome to another episode of Transformation in Trials. Today in the studio with me, I have Sebastian Andruszczak. Hello, Sebastian.
Hello, Ivana. Yep, my name is Sebastian Andruszczak, and I am a Chief Growth Officer at Holisticon. I'm happy to be here.
I am very excited to be here with you. And today is a new kind of episode in multiple ways. One, we're trying out a new question today. Two, this is actually the first time I'm recording in a new technology. And three, this is the first time that the guest, Sebastian, actually prepared the questions instead of me preparing the questions. So I feel very fortunate to be working with someone who is as eager to be here as I am. So thank you for that, Sebastian.
Thank you very much for this opportunity as well.
Well, I would like to hear more about what you're currently up to at both Holisticon and Nexer. Tell me more about what occupies your mind right now.
Okay, so starting from the company, I work for Holisticon Connect. That is the part of Nexer. And maybe starting from Nexer, Nexer is the group of software development companies. It has been founded in Sweden in 1992. Currently, it has more than 2,200 people. And Holisticon Connect is one of the parts of the Nexer. That, by the way, is the part of the Generative Group that employs more than 11,000 people across the world. And if it comes to, we are a software development company that focuses mostly on offerings around cloud data and engineering services. And by engineering, I mean mostly embedded connectivity and IoT. We are working with clients from Nordics and UK. We are also considering opening a few new markets, taking into account current geopolitical and economical situation. And if it comes to industries, we are mostly working with clients from pharma, biotech, telecoms, and automotive. Then my role connects three areas. This is sales, marketing, and the offering. And I really like to think about it as making sure that we are reaching right people via right channels with the right value proposition. So I'm not really thinking about selling, like hard selling. I'm rather thinking about where are the gaps that we could fulfill to make sure that our clients are happy and can build their competitive edge.
That sounds good. And you and I met over a LinkedIn correspondence, as is the best way to meet other interesting people. And one of the things that we connected on was data governance and how generative AI doesn't really solve the issues of data governance. But before we get into kind of the meat of this episode, if you were to explain to a 17-year-old in high school still, how would you explain what data governance actually is?
Yeah, 17 years old, it is a rather old person.
But do they know what data governance is?
Yeah, I would say that this is the set of the rules and processes to ensure that the data is accurate, safe, and easy to find. And it generally speaking, it defines specific roles to work with data, such as data manager, data steward, some kind of user. And it creates rules like who is responsible for making sure that the data is accurate, basically. Sometimes, especially in big organizations, you have 47 sources of company name. And then you want to have some report like 4 steps later. And if no one is responsible, then you are encountering some relatively small but very disturbing issues. So data governance is mainly the set of rules and processes to make sure that it won't happen.
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it. I have a relatively fresh example where we were trying to define country names this should be a simple task, right? Italy is Italy, or is it? Are we writing the country name in the country's native language? Are we just abbreviating it to the letter that's on the license plate? Are we using a number as code for like the phone number always has like a preamble so you can see which country it's from?
Yeah.
Do we use that? So when we're just trying to define like how do we define a list of countries that is the same? All these questions. So apparently it's not that simple to define what data actually is.
Yeah, this is true. Probably 7 years ago, I learned that German in Spain is apparently not German, it's Alemania. And
Yeah,
to be
right.
perfectly honest, I would never conclude it by my own.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not as simple, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah. Great. Well, hopefully the 17-year-olds amongst our audience are a little bit more educated now. Good. Well, and the reason why we're talking about data governance is when we talk about generative AI, we often encounter problems that are kind of old problems, data governance problems that just get translated into our generative AI landscape. But tell me more about your recent thoughts on generative AI adoption in pharma and biotech.
Yeah, okay. So to give some background, taking into account my role and my vision of having the best possible value proposition for the right people, I have started to talk with representatives from pharmaceutical companies some time ago in order to validate where are they with the adoption of generative AI. There are two general approaches. First is rather pragmatic one, and it's more like, yeah, let's have a generative AI-based chat, and let's do whatever we can, like translate, summarize, and so on. So this is relatively simple, but it doesn't really offer huge impact on a business. You will read emails a little quicker, but then if you really want to have very accurate communication, it's not as much quicker, in my personal opinion. And then you have more top-down strategic kind of initiatives. And those include, for example, knowledge management and learning systems. And I will give some example of Boehringer Ingelheim, what they did during last years. And then you have drug discovery. And those are much more ambitious and impactful ways how to use and adopt generative AI in the pharmaceutical business. But there are some challenges. And the challenges are related to a few facts, I would say. First one is related to the fact that you have ever-changing both data sources and needs. So, and sorry, just to conclude my previous thought. So, what I'm trying to avoid when working on this offering is to go to big pharmaceutical clients and say, like, yeah, we can connect your SharePoint with LLM. I'm sorry, but I can't bear it. Companies are actually doing it, and I have lack of understanding for this thing because solution providers such as AWS, Microsoft, they made their solutions in such a way that companies can connect those data sources by their own. Yeah. And based on my perspective, there is no value proposition. That's why I'm thinking of talking with people. Then coming up to the challenges. There are a few challenges. First one is related to ever-changing inputs. So yeah, at the end of the day, in the most of the cases, you are connecting some data sources to LLM. And those data sources have different data in the time. The data is like different in a day one and at the end of the year. On top of this, you have ever-changing needs for the output. So people are asking different questions and have different perspectives. The perspective changes in the time. So if you add one to another, in some cases, you can't really rely on the answers because answers will be different. So, sometimes it's good. If you are asking like, what is market share for Nordic countries for first quarter 2024? and then you are asking the same question, like for current quarter, let's say, and then you are asking the same question in next quarter, this variance between answers is right.
Yeah.
But then if you want to know what are the core principles of our approach to strategic clients, let's say it's a very cheesy example, I would say, but just as an example, then you would expect that answers will be totally the same. And even if you are not impacting LLM by providing new definitions of principles, still, if you are adding new presentations, let's say, to your PowerPoint, and they are not saying about principles in a straightforward way, but somewhere around, it will be taken into consideration. It can be taken into consideration. So in first quarter and third quarter, you will get different answers, and it's not really what is expected. So this is first thing. Then we have an issue, I would say, related to the languages that you ask the question. You can have totally the same sources, but if you have 100,000 people company, and some are asking a question in Chinese and some are asking question in Polish and in English, then taking into account the different semantics of those languages, you will get slightly different answer. And this is actually interesting because on the one hand, it could be just accepted. Because at the end of the day, if those people in China, Poland, and England are reading same content, just reading manually, let's say, still they understand and they process information in a little different way.
Yeah, it's the structure of languages. Yeah.
But then if you're implementing, in IT world, we used to think about standardization, about standards, consistency, accuracy. So it's not really like it could be acceptable, but it's not really what is expected. So this is, let's say, I don't want to say minor issue, but this is another issue. And then the third issue is related to particular LLM's flavor, I would say. And by flavor, I mean, if you take different LLMs, they are all trained on different data sets, and they all have different sets of censorship. And based on my personal perspective, but I have also confirmed this perspective with some representatives from pharmaceutical companies, from enterprise segment. If you take this into consideration, it's a little like, imagine that you have 100 people, 97 of them is from your company and 3 are from OpenAI.
Yeah.
You don't really want, on a strategic level, you don't really want to have it intentional. It's not an intentional decision, but it is like this. If you have same data sets, 3 different LLMs, you will get slightly different answer. And if you take into account this 100,000 employees, let's say, at the end of the day, small variances and inaccuracies will create huge impact. I think this is the butterfly effect.
I see. And also, it's a new problem that arises with this specific technology, and it's a new problem of data governance than we had before. It is still a data governance, but it is more. The information is ever changing. So do the answers to the questions that we ask, even the ones in the past.
Yeah, this is a very valid observation. But then another observation is that makes the scenario and setup a little different than it was before is the fact that with generative AI, you can scale things. I'm not really sure if exponentially, but very quickly. And you don't really want to scale up disaster. And it's very easy to make it happen. So this is another risk that wasn't really as relevant before. So those are the challenges.
I love that image that with LLM you can very quickly scale up disaster. And also, and not only is the ancient problem of data governance more relevant, so is the ancient problem of different structures of language and how we understand things. and how do the models that we have, do they account for the different understandings across languages, and do they highlight that this understanding is actually different in China compared to England?
Yeah, and I wouldn't really like to go as deep, but just as a highlight, based on social psychology, it works in both ways. So a language impacts our perception and perception impacts our language. So yes. You probably remember this example that in Iceland people have like so huge number of adjectives to describe snow.
Yeah.
So if you use this illustration and you think about what are the potential impacts of understanding things from different perspective, totally different perspective, it could be huge. Like if you will have some meeting for all employees at the end of the year and they will use the same tool, apparently it could appear that they will speak about totally different things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is very interesting. I feel like I should get like a language professor in the studio to talk about this more. That would be very interesting. But that is a topic for another day.
Yep.
And Sebastian, I would just say that I'm fascinated by your approach to designing this offering, that you're trying to understand what will actually make an impact and what is the structure of this new technology and what are the needs of life sciences before you kind of just jump in and say, here's the new thing. I think that's a really cool way to go about building a product.
Thank you very much.
I would be curious to talk more about solutions then, because these are the problems we have. What can we take from things that we know work in the past for data problems, and what is potentially something where we need to think new thoughts to solve some of the problems?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. So the offering that I'm working on at this moment concludes from 4 different, let's say, sub-offerings. It's not the parts, maybe, rather like this. And it's data governance, data engineering, something that I call deep AI/ML, and then generative AI. And it's made in the way that follows the right order, I believe. Like, in order to deal with generative AI, you need to ensure that your data is right, that you have right rules, that right people have right responsibilities. So this is the data governance. Then if it comes to the data engineering, taken into account the fact that you have so many different data sources, it's not like all people need all the data. So you need to create some data pipelines and ultimately end up with data sets that are accessible to the right departments, right teams for the right described results. Then we have deep AI ML. So it's more about this, now I think I should say old school AI, but also very serious AI, such as just implementing machine learning algorithms, different kinds of regression to predict the future based on a limited, let's say, number of information. I'm not sure if limited is right in this case, but you know what I mean. And then I think we could go to the generative AI-based solutions. And here we also have, I also have some idea that supports the challenges that we are discussing before. And I'm thinking about data validation AI agents. So something that still works in the area of making the data right.
Yeah.
So starting from the data governance, I'm not really sure how should I start. Like you already know, like I have already mentioned what is this. The general concept related to our offering particularly is related to the fact that based on my current conversations, not all of them, but majority of them, I have found that sometimes triggering such strategic initiatives is easier from the external world than internal world.
Yes.
Inside of huge organizations, regardless if you want it this way or not, there is so much politics.
Yes.
And all the agreements and different things that are making working on the data quality very difficult, especially that for some stakeholders and users, results and effects and impact is not noticeable immediately. Mm-hmm. It's more like building the basics, and then in 2-3 quarters, we can start building generative AI. So it's not like instant reward. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's difficult. And that's why I have used the opportunities that I have related to working in Nexer. Mm-hmm. So I just started strategic conversation with another 2 business areas of Nexer Data mm-hmm. Management and Nexer Enterprise Applications UK. And we started conversation about how this offering should look like. Yeah. So the data governance is definitely the first step. Then we have the data engineering, but I think I have described it already. So it's about making sure that right people, tools, and processes have right data sets to work with, and these data sets are accurate, consistent, and up to date. Mm-hmm. Then we have predictions and stuff, but I would like to tell you a few words more about those data validation AI agents. Mm-hmm. Because if we go back to one of the challenges related to data consistency, so you are asking a question in different moment in time and you are having different answer. Theoretically, you could have a, let's say, book of principles. Yeah. And you could check up the output with book of principles. You could ask just a few questions like, is the output to the book of principles items, content? If so, please validate it. Mm-hmm. And you could do it manually. It would make the whole generative AI tool I can't really understand the sense, because it wouldn't be question answer. It would be question, then Kate from the data validation team will check the answer and send it to you until the end of the day. Yeah. So it would be first step for the first concept, but then you could also really automate it. Yeah. So you could implement the data validation done by AI agents in the process of your solution. Yeah. It could be validated either semi-automatically or automatically. Yeah. And I think this is something that we would like to help to develop to our clients. Yeah. I have huge trust in this direction. And I also promised to tell a few words about Boehringer Ingelheim. I'm looking for my notes to not miss anything. Yeah, I have it. So Boehringer Ingelheim is actually doing something very similar. They are planning to complete this project until the end of 2026. It has started in 2020, so before generative AI, as a data digestion and comprehension kind of tool. And just to give few interesting highlights, it processes, digests, and comprehend 800,000 external documents, wow. 25,000 internal documents. It scaled up to more than 200 departments in more than 70 countries. Until now, they have saved 1 million hours. So,
holy moly, yeah.
Holy moly, yeah. And, I was speaking with many different companies, and Boehringer Ingelheim, at least based on my, obviously companies can't really share everything, it is clear. Mm-hmm. But based on my current knowledge, Boehringer Ingelheim is the furthest if it comes to development of such tools. Yeah. Some of companies are trying / considering, and like a huge bulk of them haven't really got some kind of top stakeholder buy-in for it. Mm-hmm. Like people are not really convinced that, yeah, it makes sense. So I think our role in this process is to convince people, yeah. to show them real impact, to show yeah. them potential output, and to help them to develop such tools. So this is about solutions, I would say.
Yeah, and I
Do
think
you
it's
have?
helpful that you kind of say, well, this is the direction that we believe will work. And just having some sort of idea of what does it take to actually get there is very helpful to the rest of the industry who are trying to figure out, well, which path should we take here?
Yeah, thank you very much for those words. It makes me, even more optimistic when I think about it. Like I personally, I don't have a doubt that this is good, right direction. But then, I just need to validate it with my potential clients. So thank you very much.
Well, Sebastian, I am curious, how did you end up in this space in the first place? Life sciences, AI, building products. What happened in your career?
Oh, I wouldn't really like to disappoint you, especially if it comes to the area of life sciences, because to be perfectly honest, it's very interesting, but at the same time difficult question. You know, I'm coming from sales and marketing world. At the same time, I just like the technology, and like not like I like to use Canva. And
Yes.
some people, when I have interviews, they are like, "Yeah, I'm very interested in the technology." So I'm like, "Okay, what technology are you interested in?" "Oh, I'm heavy user," and they are giving some example like
Yeah.
Canva or Trello. And I'm like, okay, so no,
That's not.
I'm interested in the technology in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
I have implemented few CRMs somewhere in the past for rather small, medium companies. But yeah, I learned it by my own. I know how
Yeah.
to build websites. I built probably more than 100 websites. During last years, I have completed few interesting certificates from Google. I mean, from GCP, from Mendix. This is enterprise grade local solution, and I'm trying to be on top of this. So at some point, I decided that I don't want to work with companies that are providing solutions. I want to work for companies that are building
Yes.
things.
Important
So
distinction. Yeah.
yeah, the reason is I think technology gives us so much opportunities and areas where we could do something really spectacular that I just didn't want to be limited. That's why I decided to move my career from solution providers, let's say, to software development companies. And then when I started to work in Holisticon, you know, life science meant as biotechnology and pharma is one of our target markets. So naturally,
Yeah.
I'm rather involved employee. So in order to be able to conclude all things that I have shared today,
Yeah.
I just needed to do few extra miles
Yeah.
and understand specific processes and general business principles of those segments. So this is my general connection to the business at this
Yeah.
moment.
No, that makes sense. And what do you think happens from here when we think about AI? Uh, where is it going to go? And maybe just let's keep it pretty short term because a lot of is happening quickly. Where do you think we're going?
That's a very good question. Like, I think I will refer to my previous to thing that I said previously. It goes parallelly. On the one hand, we have those low effort, low impact actions.
Mhm.
And I believe that it will be supported by solution providers. So as for now, it's not only about LLMs per se and AWS, Google, Microsoft, and OpenAI, and so on. It's also about solutions that are already generative AI based solutions that are already embedded in bigger solutions slash ecosystems such as SAP, IBM, Salesforce, and so on, even locals like Mendix. So I think this it's going to be one direction, and initiatives here are going to be triggered rather bottom up.
Mhm.
It can provide some interesting results, but I don't really feel that it can be really like, very, very, very impactful and spectacular. Then we have those huge initiatives. And those, like, I believe it's going to still be mostly around probably drug discovery. Then another thing about knowledge digestion and comprehension, I think it's also valid. And the comprehension part is really important because, you know, 5, 7 years ago, we was like, yeah, let's have our data clean, let's have it like a lot, then let's have some regression, predict some numbers, and it was what companies were playing for. For now, I think it's more about also understanding, deep understanding of the data, especially unstructured data. So I think it's going to be like, I wouldn't really expect some spectacular developments as per se. I think people will just try to do as much as they can in these areas. Technology is going to be better, but at the same point, hype, I hope, is going to decrease a little because the topic is overhyped, like a lot.
Yes,
and
agreed.
like I understand this, but I don't really like it.
Yeah, it's counterproductive that the hype is so high. It creates unnecessary tension and pressure without leading to better solutions.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And there were actually some, I don't remember who has provided this data, but there was some research about reasons of implementing generative AI in huge organizations. And apparently, some huge numbers, huge percentage of respondents said, like, yeah, they are doing it because of fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that such initiative should be triggered by this kind of reasons.
Yeah.
Again, I understand, but I don't agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with your disagreement in this. Well, Sebastian, as we start rounding off, we always ask our guests the same question. I'm especially curious about your answer because you've had a different entrance into the life sciences space. You have the luxury of somewhat seeing it from the outside and not just being like brought up through the life sciences. If I gave you the transformation in trials magic wand that can change one thing in the life sciences industry, what would you wish to change?
Oh, very easy. To be fair, the general approach to the data quality, and I understand, now I will be serious. I understand that I see only small part of the whole environment, and probably you should treat it just as a, let's say, half joke or 30% joke. Like, I understand that there could be things beyond my comprehension that are much more crucial, important, but sorry, I can't talk about it if I don't understand it. But if we look on life science, even not only life science, and our current technological landscape, I believe that this is perfect moment, honestly, perfect opportunity to solve issues that we are talking about since 2 decades now.
Yes.
Like, everyone heard, sit in, sit out. Organizations are talking about low quality of data, poor quality, inaccuracies, and so on. And I will refer back to what I said before, no one wants to scale disaster. Yeah. So I think now generative AI gives us additional benefit. We have a great justification to actually run those initiatives, focus around providing the right data quality. And on the other hand, I said that I can't see the whole picture, but at the same time, like, based on my set of values that I believe in, and like, data are crucial. If we want to take right decisions, data are crucial. So I think it's not really overshot. And if we look on this data quality related projects, I have also put 2 other keywords to my notes: ontology and knowledge graphs. So I think this is something that should be taken into account. So I would change general approach. So C-level stakeholders would say, like, yeah, let's start to work on our data quality today. It's a great idea, Sebastian.
No, that would be great. And also, if people do want to reach out to you and talk more about helping build your product or more about knowledge graphs, where can they find you, Sebastian?
I think the easiest way would be on LinkedIn. My last name is rather difficult to pronounce.
Put it in the show notes. Yeah.
So, yeah, probably LinkedIn would be the perfect first step, and we would naturally move the conversation on our company emails, arrange the meeting, and have a great conversation.
That sounds great. Sebastian, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
You're listening to Transformation in Trials. If you have a suggestion for a guest for our show, reach out to Sam Parnell or Ivana Rosendal on LinkedIn. You can find more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or in any other player. Remember to subscribe and get the episodes hot off the editor.